day liberalism and the liberalism of yesteryear are antithetical. A classic liberal has nothing to do with politically the modern liberalism of today. In fact, modern day liberalism is more closely akin to communism, progressivism, Marxism, not to, the champions of liberalism of yesteryear, John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy, he would have been a Republican today. And you can see that, with RFK joining Trump. You can see that in a lot of different circumstances. And there's a lot of liberals that have left the Democratic Party because of how totalitarian it has become. But if you go back to the origins of liberalism, and you can go back further than the French Revolution, but for the sake of brevity, I'm going to start there. In 1793, Louis XVI was decapitated. He was killed. And this marked a large change away from feudalism, the monarchy, and Catholicism. And people who sat in the large hall where Louis would do his governing, on the left were people who supported the revolution. And on the right were people who supported the monarchy and the Catholic Church, which supported the monarchy. So by and large, liberalism meant, in that day, opposition to centralized power and freedom for individuals. And today, that's just exactly what conservatives believe. So when you hear people say, oh, he's on the right or he's on the left, you really have to say when. How do you define the continuum, and when do you find the continuum? Because if you say someone is on the right, you have to understand that when the Puritans and the Europeans settled here, and you can have your opinions on the origin of the conflict between the Europeans and the Native Americans. I'm not going to get into that. What I'm saying is that when the Europeans settled here, they founded a country that was in governance the opposite of what they had been enslaved to overseas. They didn't want to be a part of a government that was oppressive. So they created a government that was anti-centralization, that was anti-collectivist, that prohibited power from being in the hands of too few people. So they created all these checks and balances. The Electoral College, the legislative, judicial, and executive branches, all of these mechanisms in our government to prevent one branch from getting too much control over the other. To diffuse power so that you didn't have tyranny of the majority, but the minority opinions were protected. That's the idea. Because they weren't in Europe. So when you say someone is on the right, you have to really say when. Because the transatlantic shift, that's what I call it. You can call it whatever you want to. That's my term for it. The transatlantic shift has to be a part of that discussion. Because when you hear, especially during times of elections, you hear people say, he's on the right, he's alt-right, he's fascist. Well, how do you define the continuum? In the lay, social study books in high school, you're going to see a continuum where you have communism on the left, you have fascism on the right, you have communism on the left, or you have anarchy on the right. Okay, none of these are exact, right? People on the right, by and large, believe in decentralization, individual liberties, self-determination. They don't want to be told what to do. They want to be able to be free to make their own choices. Okay, be them right or wrong, they want the ability to make those choices for themselves. People on the left don't believe in that. They believe in centralized power, and they'll sell it as if it is pro-choice, pro-freedom. But what kind of freedom are they talking about? They're talking about freedom that is given to you by government, not by God, by government. So there's a huge difference. When someone says they're right of center or left of center, ask them to define their terms.